race theory started his foothold amongst the community back in 2020. But we said it is time that we address what critical race theory is. A lot of people come into the bookstore wanting to understand what critical race theory is. I have a loaded panel today that's going to answer questions. They're going to talk about critical race theory, why it came about, is there such a purpose, just everything. We're going to deal with it today. But before we get started, I'm going to do a little housekeeping. Right now, you'll see we have a poll question. Hopefully, everybody can go out there and answer some of the poll questions. And if you have a question, please click the link below that says ask a question. You will be guided to post your questions in a chat area, and I will read the questions once we get into Q&A. Just a little bit more. The Doc Bookshop is a family-owned and operated bookstore. It is one of the largest African-American owned bookstores in Fort Worth. We sell greeting cards, we have books, audiobooks, ebooks, you name it, we sell it at the Doc Bookshop, along with personal care and home care. But before I bring on my panel, I do want to share this video just to get everything started so we can get into the understanding. I know a lot of people out there don't understand what critical race theory is. So I'm going to just start a quick video that was put together by Kimberly Crenshaw. I'll probably show the video at the end because it's one post, but let's just go ahead and get started. Our first panelist is Jonathan Perez. For 15 years, Dr. Perez has worked to assist young people, college students, and professionals develop their racial consciousness by creating spaces for courageous conversations and other opportunities to learn about the pervasive dynamics of racism while preparing them for action. Because of his journey, he has developed a strong belief that if racism is left unchecked, society will continue to see increase in racially charged occurrences that impact success for people of color. Combining his education lived experiences from being a high school dropout to now serving an educator, mentor, advocate, and leader in his community has prepared him to recognize and confront racism head on. Next up. We have Ricky Clark. Hello, Ricky Clark.
Hello.
Ricky Clark is a special skill set, speaker, trainer, author, motivator. He has a distinctive approach and a passion for helping underserved communities. He is an educational consultant, author, and executive director of My Brother's Keeper program, initiated by President Barack Obama in 2014. He is a dynamic and influential motivator who uses a unique approach as he works with young men of color. Thank you, Ricky Clark.
Thanks for having me.
Next up, let me see, Max the Man. I'm going to bring him to the screen. There you go, Max the Man. Max Crockmo. I probably massacred that. I totally apologize. He's an associate professor of history and founding chair of the Department of Comparative Race and Ethnic Studies at Texas Christian University. His research centers on social movements and coalitions building among Chicano, Latinx, African American, and white communities organizers from the 1930s to present. Max is the author of Blue Texas, which we have at the Doc Bookshop, the making of a multicultural democratic coalition in the civil rights era. I think he's in Mexico right now, but we're going to get into that a little bit more, exactly where he's at. I have two more panelists we're going to bring up. served as senior pastor of Greater St. Stephen's First Church Baptist, Fort Worth, Texas. Dr. Bell is a graduate of Kilpatrick High School, Fort Worth. He has earned degrees from the following colleges and universities: a Bachelor of Science from Wiley College, Marshall, Texas, a Master's of Divinity at Howard University Divinity School, Washington, D.C., a Master of Arts, a Master of Arts, University of Texas at Tyler, Texas, and a Doctor of Ministry. And we have our final panelist I'd like to bring up. Okay, Minister Lee, you might have to, okay, there you go. Did he come on? Where'd he go?
Let's put it back up there. There you go.
There you go. Minister Lee Muhammad has been a registered member of the Nation of Islam since 1994. He was a member of the local organizing committee in Dallas, Texas, and helped in the organization and mobilization of the historic Million Man March of 1995 that he also attended. He became the assistant minister of Mosque number 5048. In Dallas that same year, he moved to Texas Arcana as a study group coordinator in 1997. In 2000, he was reassigned as student minister over Muhammad Mosque number 52 in Fort Worth, Texas, and currently served in his capacity. He's been married 25 years. And I want to thank everybody out there who has joined us. We have a great group out there that's watching us on Facebook and in our Doc Bookshop Live platform. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. I see Deborah people, she was jumped on earlier, so thanks a lot. And a lot of other people that have come on. I truly, truly appreciate everybody that has come on. Again, if you, little housekeeping rules, I'll probably mute people. If I have too much background noise, but we're just going to jump right into the conversation. Sorry, everybody, I couldn't play the video. I thought I could play the video, but I got so many great panelists on here that the system said, no, you got too many great panelists on here. You can't play this video because they just gonna speak for you. So let's just jump right into this. Everybody want to know what is critical race theory. We'll go in circles and then we'll have a bunch of pop-up questions where the panelists can jump out and ask questions. But I'm just going to go into the order of my screen. And that is, Jonathan, you are up trying to tell us your version of what critical race theory is. Help us understand.
When I started this, everybody, thank you for having me here today. And I look forward to having this conversation. I'm with everyone here today, and I look forward to the questions that are going to come along as well. So what is critical race theory, right? The academic term is, it's an analysis of structures, policies, practices, and laws in the United States that provides a lens across intersectional identities for which society can determine how the impacts of racism, classism, sexism, and other forms of oppression and discrimination have shaped traditional outcomes for the most vulnerable. So what does that mean, right? And I'll give you an example. So critical race theory is a theoretical lens, right? In how we view the world when it comes to race and racism. So right now I have nothing on my face, right? You know, I'm navigating life in a white structure that I'm navigating through. And I'm going through the K-12 educational system, and I come out as a patriot, right? I'm taught how to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm taught about the beginning of America. I'm taught about Christopher Columbus and all these things, which really provides one perspective of how our educational is. So critical race theory lens is you put on your lens and you see the world differently. You see how race and racism plays in every part of our society. And that is gone through the 5 tenets of critical race theory, which the first one is that racism in the United States is ordinary, right? It's in the fabric of our society. It's at the foundation of every institution that we navigate through. And that's what it is. The second tenet of critical race theory is called interest convergence, which explains how economics and bottom lines encourage corporations and organizations to converge their economic interest with a social cause. So some of the examples of that we see in Nike and the Kaepernick campaign. The third tenet for critical race theory is the social construction of race. which is creation by dominant white cultures to impose and inflict harm against people of color. The fourth one, which is probably the most powerful one, at least for me, is the counter narrative, right? It's the art of storytelling. And counter narratives hold up an important lens to the experiences of marginalized groups, communities, and display how racism and injustice have led to generational traumas as well as extreme adversity. And finally, the last tenet is whiteness as property, which situates white people as silent recipients of civil rights legislation. White people have reaped the benefits of laws superficially designed to benefit people of color, such as Brown versus Board of Education and all the Brown Board of Education and other laws and policies. So I know I said a lot of things, but I wanted to make sure that we talk about the 5 tenets of critical race theory, and that's the lens that we see the world through, we navigate through.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay, thank you. Ricky Clark. I don't want you to be redundant, but I know it's somewhat because we're kind of breaking it down, but there's so many different interpretations of what critical race theory, what it means.
Well, then I'm going to give this interpretation. Critical race theory is just another buzzword, political word for folks to get people wild up. CRT, and if he gave the educational term for it, it's just another word they use for politically so that we can get fired up, and they don't realize what they're doing. So CRT, to me, is just another, and so when we address misinformation, right, it's almost like we confirm it, right? So I don't want to get mixed up in saying that everything is thrown into CRT, history, politics, everything, all of it's thrown into one thing, and it is. So CRT is looking at things theoretically. You just got to thought about it. I mean, we deal with CRT every time we wake up. Every time you wake up in the morning, you're dealing with CRT, especially people of color. So critical race theory, I like the way Eric Michael Dyson said, we're thinking critically. It ain't no race, it's just a theory. CRT is not the numbers that bother him. It's what's in CRT that affect them. So I'm not concerned with that. I'm not running from CRT. I'm actually running to CRT. I think it's important that we think of things critically. I think that we need to have a lens on it. He calls it a critical lens. And to me, I just say, looking at things critically. Why wouldn't we look at it? And I think they're more concerned with what's in CRT than what CRT is. Nobody even teaches CRT in school. They couldn't even explain it. Couldn't talk about it if they want to. So if I gave a thought for it, so what I know about it, CRT is something that was created in law school to deal with the different systems that affect people of color. That's really what it is. It's dealing with systems. So I'm gonna move on and let somebody else give another view of it. But if I gave it my elevator pitch, don't get caught up in the CRT. It's what's in CRT that's affecting.
Exactly, great. Max? Welcome to the panel. Thank you very much, Professor Max. Go ahead and enlighten us of your what CRT is to you.
Sure thing. Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Ms. Danya, and for everybody being here. It's wonderful to be with the doc and with all these great folks on this call. Yeah, kind of what Ricky was saying, CRT has its origins as this intervention in law schools, right? Critical legal studies, scholars of color coming in and trying to help their discipline and the rest of us understand, how it is that even in the face of the civil rights revolution in law, so much inequality persisted, right? And so how was it that we could develop different legal theories, different jurisprudence that focus not just on access, not just on rights under the law, but on outcomes and on disparate impacts of laws. And so they pushed backward, as Jonathan said, to the very beginnings of the United States. They pushed up to the present moment that they were writing in, starting in the 1980s. They developed this intersectional framework for thinking about how race connects with gender and class and other forms of power and inequality. And then, like what Ricky said, CRT's become a catch-all. It's become a punching bag for the right. It's become a way to attack all work that has to do with fighting for racial justice. And as a historian, right, it's also become an attack directly on us, on history and on truth. And so much of what we do in my field, those of us who do it correctly, right? People who are interested in an inclusive and accurate history, we see, as Jonathan said, right, race is foundational to the United States, but that's not a theory, that's a historical fact. That's something that we can dig up empirically and see that all this evidence, right, about how the founders of the United States set out to create a republic for themselves, right? Not a republic for everybody, a republic that was built on top of enslaved labor and built on top of conquest and genocide. And so, what we're seeing right now, and the reason this has become a topic of conversation the last couple of years, is the right wing in America has figured out that they're going to hold on to power by suppressing the vote, right, as we're seeing everywhere, but also by suppressing the truth. And they are correctly afraid that if we start teaching people the truth about how we got to be the way we are today, that folks will start questioning why all this inequality still exists and why a bunch of rich white, conservative men continue to put their boots on all of our collective necks. And so, from a vocabulary and a language for these conversations that has allowed practitioners in the field of education and everywhere to go out and really change the story in powerful ways. And we're still fighting that battle, and they're coming after us full tilt. But really, there's all these different great theories about race, great research on race, and all of it is helping us to move that conversation forward, to educate our communities, to organize around the truth, and that's why the other side's coming after us. Sure. So I'll stop there for now. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you for the introduction and that synopsis of critical race theory. Dr. Bell, can you bring critical race theory to the forefront from your perspective? Uh-oh, you're muted. I think you're muted. Let me unmute you. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I am humbled to be with this panel. By the way, I'm a Howard graduate, but if I don't say that, I'm also a Morehouse graduate as well. And my Morehouse brothers are going to be highly upset. And so doctorate is from ITC and Morehouse School of Religion in Atlanta, Georgia. And I need to say that, else I'm going to have some calls, and they're not going to be too friendly. A couple of things. The CRT, the critical race theory, is a law school course, but the theory argues that historical patterns of racism are ingrained in the law, and also that it permeates other institutions, and that the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow and segregation, that it still creates an uneven playing field for people of color. So when they talk about the CRT is just a way of looking at race, and why even though laws have been passed, there still seems to be this vice grip that racism has on how laws are enforced, on the criminal injustice system, and on other institutions here in this country. And the point we talk about it is because the law contributes, and this is what the CRT does. It talks about how these laws contribute to the subordinate status of racial ethnic minorities, of Black, Brown, and Asian Americans and indigenous Americans. So it talks about that. So, but what happened is this: the reason why it has come to the forefront is because Christopher Rufo and the right wing, so-called right wing, but they're really the alt-right. The alt-right have weaponized it As a matter of fact, the Texas legislature passed House Bill 3979, and it's really a muzzle law. That's what it really is, it's a muzzle law, in that it talks about teaching the CRT, but the CRT is never taught in pre-K through 12. That's a lie, and it's and those who push this, they know it's a lie. And so it has never been taught there. What they've done is they've weaponized it. They made it this bugbear, and they made it a catch-all phrase for anything that deals with equity, any kind of issues deal with equity, anything that and really what it is, it's an assault on the truth. It's an assault on the truth. It's whitewashing of history. And but it has nothing to do with Derek Bell in his book, Faces at the Bottom of the Well, and also Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw and others. They've spelled out, if to anybody who wants to hear and really wants to know for sure with clarity what it is, it's not that complicated as far as what it's about. There are just some, we have even in Fort Worth, you remember that cultural, that task force on race and culture, they came back in 2019, and they said in 2019 that racism in Fort Worth is structural, institutional, and systemic. And so all that did is that echoed what the criminal race theory, the CRT, has said. So it's just again, the reason why we have all this trouble at school board meetings in the 21 states have gone through all of the rigmarole they've gone through is because the alt-right and those minions who embrace that perspective, what they've done is they've weaponized it. That's right.
Okay, Minister Lee, are you here? You come in and out, but we were ready for you, Minister Lee. Thanks so much, Dr. Bell, for your perspective. And we're going to get into some questions in just a minute. But Minister Lee, go ahead. Question was on CRT. What is critical race theory from your perspective?
Okay. Well, in the name of not sounding redundant, I want to agree with what everyone else has said concerning critical race theory. It is, by definition, a movement that started in the 60s and really got established in like 1989. And Brother Dr. Bell mentioned Derek Bell, who wrote Faces at the Bottom of the Well. He's one of the founding, what you consider founding fathers of critical race theory, argued that racism in America had a certain type of permanency because any gains that the minority population, particularly Black and Brown, have made, they made it due to what he termed conversion of interest, which is to say that whatever gains we were allowed to make, we were allowed to make them because it converged with the interest of the dominant white society. Okay, so Derek Bell was a law professor, and it morphed from critical legal studies into critical race theory. And basically the argument is that the law has been used, or should I say misused,
that's right,
to deny people of color housing, proper education, proper health care, and they use the law to do so. And so, as everyone has said, the critical race theory is looking at in society from the lens of how the law has used race to affect us. And they argue in the critical race theory that race is a culturally invented thing, and culturally invented, and therefore hierarchy. And they struggle. You have this hierarchy. Those who are in control of
Okay. I
You
think
know, what really brought it to the forefront in this day and time.
you were breaking up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. What really brought it to the forefront in this day and time is the current situations on race, the 619 project, the murder of George Floyd. All of these things have brought race to the forefront. And basically, what critical race theory argues, as Dr. Bell said, you know, it's the history of our sojourn in America, right, and how we have been a victim of institutionalized racism. And critical race theory basically is it's a theory, but you have to, as you and I know, you think critically, you read critically, and then therefore you have a critical conversation based on your critical thinking, your critical studies. And the opponents of CRT they want to stifle that critical thinking and therefore that critical conversation as it relates to why the masses of our people are at the bottom of the well. Okay. And I'll just close with this point. The goal of CRT is the eliminating of all race-based and unjust hierarchies. Okay. And that's the goal. And so the goal has to begin with having an open dialogue about the truth.
Okay, I think what else, but in summary, you know, we have our panelists have given us an overview of what critical theory is, critical race theory. They've given the tenets, they've given the history, they've given the opposite view of critical race theory. They covered so much in this, but I want to move forward in just expounding off what Minister Lee said and then passing this around. It is what we see as defining as a theory. A theory is a scientific means that it is unfinished. Theory means it is unfinished business. Why would we call this concept a theory? You know, it's unfinished business. I'm going to throw this one at Ricky Clark, and then I'm just going to go around. But, you know, why call it a theory? Scientifically, a theory, it means it's not complete, it's not finished.
You know what
go.
I would agree, because there's still some work to do. So when you think about it critically, there is still some more work to do. I mean, just using the term woke affect people. Just saying that somebody's woke affect them. So when you think about something that's unfinished, that's still some work that we need to do. And it's going to be like this until we get it that way, until we see some equity, right? I'm not talking about being equal, but equity. Like he said, making a playing field smooth. So I would use the word theory, but I'm reminded of something Minister Lee said a while before. Folks ain't worried about no damn theory. They worried about facts. Mm-hmm. So they saw the third theory in there for you to just throw us off. But it's really about facts. And when you start giving people the facts, they honestly wake up. They're saying, oh, I'm looking at things differently. I mean, something as simple as asking a young kid in class, like, where did you get the concept of time from? So we got to think critically about that. Where did the concept of time come from? Seconds to minutes, minutes to hour, hour to days. That's thinking critically, right? So whenever you have somebody to think critically, they have to go back. And once you go back and you start looking at this thing through a different eye, that a theory now is put into practice. So you've heard people say, is this a hypothesis? Well, that's an educated guess. Well, here's a fact. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between truth and facts. Everybody can tell the truth. But when you're thinking about CRT, they're giving us facts. And it's hard to question that. And then they can back it up. If you read the book 1619, and every theory that they say was a theory she put out there, she backs it up with facts. So that's why when you hear critical race theory means it's backed up with facts. Mm-hmm. So it may not be true, but it's backed up with facts.
Okay. And in order not to be redundant, I'm going to go to Dr. Bell. Now, in one of your comments, you made a comment that it's not being taught in schools, but if Ricky Clark is talking about it as a substance, like it's history, in your education. Why would we not be learning in school? You said critical race theory, oh, they're not learning at the kindergarten level, but we're teaching somewhat of Black history in the elementary school environment. So is it really not taught there, or is it taught there in the school?
It's not being taught there. What you're talking about is a derivative. What's going on is that we're talking about an iteration of something. It's called the theory, critical race theory, is because that's how educators talk. They talk about hypotheses and theorems and so forth, and that's not unusual. The fact that the critical race theory is just bottom line saying that, hey, racism, the reason why we take 2 steps forward and 3 or 4 steps backwards is because racism is embedded in the systems. I don't know. Let me just even go further, because in a very real sense, America is what is called an Herrenvolk democracy, HERRENVOLK. It's a Herrenvolk democracy. It could be called an ethnocracy. And so what's going on, and that's what's going on is that the critical race theory is just saying in that context of that law classroom or that law school, that this is how law contributes to the subordinate status of Black and brown and racial, so-called racial ethnic minorities. Now, what we're dealing with in the public schools is really what has emanated or come out of the misleading information that is being pushed and pimped by the alt-right, those what are called intolerant whites. That's what we're finding. That's why when the critical race theory is not when they teach Black history. Critical race theory is not when they teach, when they read a book by Toni Morrison, when they Maya Angelou. That's not the critical race theory. The reason that is even in the discussion is because those who are completely ignorant of it and have convinced a gullible public that this is a real issue. What has happened is that now we're falling for the okey-doke as well if we start thinking on any level that the teaching of Black history or equity or any of that has anything to do with the CRT. Rufo himself, this young guy who's a Manhattan fellow, Rufo, was the one who came up with it and said, hey, look here, this is going to work. Just as they needed, who was that Ronald Reagan had? He had, I forget who he had as the boogeyman, the boogeyman. I forget who it was, but every time they have to have somebody. And since President Barack Obama was no longer at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, they needed something else to motivate and reinvigorate the white electorate. And so what they did is that they came up with this, they weaponized something over here that literally had nothing to do with our public schools. And guess what? They've taken it. What you're really dealing with right now when we talk about the CRT on a school board level or on a municipal level and so forth, what we're really dealing with is a lie. So how do you fight a lie? You see, because what they've done, they've taken the narrative. I think one of the panelists have said they've taken the narrative and they run with it. They have a strategy. That's an approach. That's a way of dealing with things. That's a way of getting people excited. And that's what they've done. But what is going on in the public school classrooms, literally on the for real side, has nothing to do with the CRT, not even some derivative of it.
Thank you for clearing that up, because so many people think it's tied to Black history, and you have so eloquently cleared that up. And I'm gonna get to the chat. You guys, I promise to get to the chat. I have some more direct questions that I'm gonna hit, and then we're gonna hit the chat and what have you. Jonathan, you're very engaged in the community. You're very involved in the different cultures. I want to understand, why do you think, on a grassroots level, because we talked about it being in academia. Now, on a grassroots level, why do you think this information, like the tenants, as you mentioned, the 5 tenants, why do you think that's going to be important to the person that's, trying to just take care of their family, trying to live day to day? Why?
Yeah, Dr. Rodolfo Acuña in Occupied America, the Chicano Struggle Towards Liberation, wrote, well, actually the very first line says that history can either oppress or liberate a people. And I think what we're seeing in the community and in schools and different systems is people are becoming liberated. People are coming in terms and how the history, we keep talking about history, right? And how it plays out in these different systems. One of the things is that we see, critical race theory allows us to analyze what went on way back when, right? So you see, do you know what the first movie that played at the White House is?
What'd you say, Ricky Clark?
Ricky? Birth? Yeah.
Birth of
So
a Nation,
it allowed
the first movie.
Yeah. So we see how our society, our government, our institutions create white supremacy within these systems, right? Through the KKK, through them infiltrating different systems here in the United States. One of the things, though, that I really, people think that it's just critical race theory. There's Latino critical race theory, there's Asian critical race theory, there's tribal critical race theory, and so much. So it really provides people that lens to challenge the status quo in those systems that they're navigating in. Right now, what we see in this country, we're seeing a power struggle. We're seeing, traditionally in every leadership role, we see white men who have historically held those positions. Right now, we're seeing that as they're trying to retire, they're leaving, corruption and all the other things, seeing how these power systems are being played out within these systems.
Yeah, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. I do want to, again, I still want to understand, how is that mother, how does that apply to her? She's just trying to take care of her hierarchy of needs. And then we're bamboozled on the community level of trying to, grasp this whole critical race theory and at the same time feed our family. So,
I think,
when we talk about critical race theory, we're coming from a place of privilege. Not everybody knows, not everybody cares, not everybody wants to, but it's really from a place of privilege. I mean, my responsibility as an educator, as a community leader, as a scholar practitioner, is to speak up and stand up for that mother who cannot speak up or stand up for herself, right? So, that's a responsibility that I have as an individual. And I believe that it is my responsibility to stand up for those people who don't want to, or don't have the time, or don't understand. And which is what we're doing here today, is giving that information to the community to where they can understand it for themselves.
Right. Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, I have one more question. I'm Max, and then I'm gonna open it up. Now, you deal with history. Everybody on the panel has a lot of knowledge when it comes to history and culture. But I do want to direct this at Max, because he mentioned it in his speech, in his opening, how we must teach history, how we must tell history. Well, I think Pastor Bell might have said, Dr. Bell might have said, no, I don't know who said it, but there is a certain group that is really pushing the agenda. And they say that it is the Democratic Party about pushing the agenda. It kind of is what it is. The left, yeah, they say they're pushing that agenda. Now, if we're going to teach the truth about history, at what point do we talk about the Democratic history, the Democratic alignment with the Confederacy, and how that has been so detrimental and oppressive and dehumanizing to African American people? And then everybody can jump in on this answer, but I want, since he Max triggered the question, okay, in his opening.
Go ahead, Max.
Okay, well, so yeah, thank you. And well, I mean, to start with, I think what Dr. Bell said about the United States as a hair-invoked democracy is right on. You know, that this has always been, to a great extent, an ethno-state of white folks, and giving enough crumbs to white working people in order to keep that whole operation alive and to keep white people separate from folks of color who are also working. And to keep them just one little rung above, right? So that's American history. And so the Democratic Party, when it emerged, I mean, that was its whole reason for being, was let's give the white working class, white small farmers just enough to keep them loyal to the white patricians, the white big landholders, the white industrialists, just enough to keep them loyal and have them voting on race instead of on their class position. And that was something that they redid every time over and over again. That was the way that they overthrew Reconstruction, the way that they overthrew the populist uprising, which was a multiracial uprising. It was by giving white workers incentives, giving them real wages of whiteness to vote, you know, really against their own material and spiritual cycle and you know, larger maybe spiritual interest, and instead in terms of the immediate needs, right? So that is the center of it. So I wrote a book called Blue Texas, but I'm not in any way wanting to romanticize the Democratic Party, and particularly its segregationist wing. I think what's interesting instead is how do folks of all backgrounds find ways to come together without erasing those differences, right? And I think that's why critical race theory and why history are so important, is because they do give us this language to understand persistent racial inequality. They do help us think about why there's still so much that's wrong despite the changes in laws. They help people think about how can we have some converging interests even if we're different. And as Jonathan said at the outset, right, it uplifts the idea of counter narratives and counter storytelling. You know, and that's why African American history and why Chicanx, Latinx history is so threatening to the fascists on the other side. Let's call them what they are, right? These are fascists. They're trying to create an ethno-state, you know, with no holds barred, with no restrictions whatsoever. And they're threatened by the accurate teaching of history, by the teaching of Black studies and of Latinx studies. And so I guess I do want to say one more thing about the school part, which is that, and also the question of the everyday. What is it that everyday people have to do with critical race theory? In my mind, this is a life and death struggle for all of our communities. People can go walking through their daily lives, but the reality is these fascists are trying to build a state in which they want to eliminate folks of color. They want to eliminate Jews like me. They want to run out people who dissent for any reason, and they want to create a society that is only for wealthy white folk, without having to compromise anymore. And so for me, you know, that's why it's important to everybody, and why it's our job as educators, as community activists, to make sure people understand the stakes in this fight. The last thing I want to say about the education, you know, it's true that they're not teaching Derek Bell and they're not teaching Kimberly Crenshaw in the schools, but they are, or they should be, teaching insights from this school, from this field of research. And a lot of us, Ricky Clark, Dr. Perez, the folks from the Friends of Cobb Park, a bunch of other people who are around the Doc Bookshop and in our community, Black and Latinx, have been pushing Fort Worth ISD for years, and have gotten some very helpful leadership from Cinto Ramos and some of the other board members at actually trying to create a curriculum that's culturally responsive, that's historically accurate, and have that be infused into all of K-12 education in our district. And we were making huge strides at doing that. I had the privilege of working on those projects. My friend Dr. Delaney from UTA got to work on one of those projects. We have been making a lot of progress, and we have a long ways to go. We got to teach the teachers how to do it. they're not ready. And now, of course, we're facing this huge backlash. And so, to me, the path forward for educators and for educational systems is to say, to invoke maybe Beto O'Rourke, yeah, hell yes, we're going to teach CRT, and we're going to do it, and we're going to teach accurate history, and we have to find a way to fight back against the state without compromising on the truth and on our moral and practical need, right, to continue organizing around it.
That's right. And if I could veggie back off what he's saying, I mean, the CRT.
I want you to veggie back, but I want you to veggie back and including this comment too, because I want to piggyback on what he said, but I also want to add to it. And so you can put that in your response. In consideration what Professor just said, I want to just give some thought to what Winsome Sears has said. She is the first African-American lieutenant government. She said, I am proof we are progressing. I am an immigrant and I am in the former capital of the Confederacy. I am second in command of 8 point some million people. When are we going to say we can make it? We can make it. Let's look at life as being overcomers. This too we will overcome. Say that to Black and brown children and all other children. Say that to them instead of constantly being divisive. And this is on the heels of Martin Luther King Jr., where she made that, comment. And she said we need to move forward. So Ricky, when you respond to that, I want you to also consider what Winsome Sears said, and she disputes. She is really anti-critical race theory. And then I want Pastor Bell and Minister Lee to jump in on this.
So I think there's a lot of people that's anti here. They're anti because they don't know what it is. So I'm talking about the masses of our people, not the individual of our people, right? I think it was Jesse Jackson who says you can't come in with Pharaoh's education and leave out with a European, with an African frame thought is what he's saying. So this education that we're having right here that they're giving us, this is I call it a CV mentality in this cell phone world, whether you Black, brown, or white. The same information that applied then doesn't apply now because we're woke. So we're hearing things differently now. So if she's coming, and the first thing I ask people all the time, what's your frame of reference? So I can't question her because she thinks that, because that's her frame of reference. That's from where she is. All Black people ain't there. That's why you said theory means we're still working on it. So when I find people of our own race that do that, I'm not surprised because I know everybody wearing my color ain't necessarily on my team. All my skin folks ain't your kin folks. Everybody on your side ain't necessarily on your side, right? They're my corner, don't make them on my side. So if they're not reading this information, they're not studying this information, she's coming from her frame of reference. She believed because she made it. But remember the African proverb, I am because we are therefore I am. So if I knew that, I wouldn't make that comment, right? So I can't question her for her frame of reference. But what I want to do is share with the young folks who know. So what you begin to do is you have to counter those narratives, right? Well, how do I counter that? She can show me one, but I'll show you 1,000 more that's not. So that way I'm not in here bickering with you, going back and forth. I think of my man, John Henry Clark says, I don't debate with people who don't study. I only debate with my equal. So I couldn't get in a debate with her or with you about that because that's what she is. But where am I, Rick? So what I'll continue to do is study and impart this liberating information to our young people and to our old people who are willing to hear it. I think the Bible says, does not cast your pearls amongst the swine. So everybody not going to hear this. Right. So when I see Black people that say that and do that, I'm not mad at them. When I see brown folks that say that, I'm not mad at them. When I hear Jews that speak from the other side, I'm not mad at them. That's just where they are. But if they allow me to share with them some of the facts, and a lot of the facts that I got is twined up in that CRT, then they can begin to see the reality of it. Because the question is, either what they've done to us still affect us now, or we're not able to agree, do anything. So you saying to me either what you had done still not affecting us, or you believe we just like that. And I think the latter part, we're not just like that. I think we're greater than that. And not only think we are, I know we are. And I'm seeing examples right here on the panel. So I'm not mad at her for saying that, because there's 1,000 more who thinks differently. So let's start with what we have and build on what we know. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And when I think about the CRT, guess who I come in mind with? I don't know if y'all ready for it, but are y'all familiar with Dr. Frances Quest Weston and her work? She wrote ISIS paper, color compensation. I think what they're really messing with is they had zero population growth. They want me to talk about school, but the reality of it is white people at a zero population growth. The demographers have proven that they had zero population growth. What does that mean? For every one that dies, only one born. We got and for a race to continue, you got to have a 2.3. And Frances Quest Weston said this, so they battling with this unconsciously. Read the ISIS paper. I'll stop.
Now I'm going to throw this at Pastor Bell, but I'm going to layer it again.
Red Bell.
We're dealing with politics. Let's layer this again. You know, Greg Abbott has signed the controversial bill that prescribes how Texas teachers can talk about current events in America's history of racism in the classroom, according to the Texas legislator. His signature makes Texas one of the handful of states across the country that have passed such legislation, which aims to ban the teaching of critical race theory in K-12, K-12 in public school classrooms. And you have already been dismissive of that, but here you go, this signing of this bill. And I think it's actually after Biden had reversed what Trump signed a bill in 2020, in September 2020. So let me unmute you, Pastor Bill, or Dr. Bill. And then I promise next.
That's okay. Let's get something real straight. I think it's really important for those who are listening. Number one is we are not descending into a herringbone democracy. We're already part of it. Robert Dahl wrote a book called, where it said that America is a oligarchy rather than a democracy. But the bottom line is this, is that the truth is we're not becoming. We need to open our eyes and understand that we are already in the midst of Nazi Germany, South Africa, the Dutch in South Africa. They came to this country to study this country's oppressive ways. Isabel Washington, right? Hold that book up. That Isabel Washington wrote in that book right there, Caste, the origins of our discontent. That book, Wilkerson, pardon me, Isabel Wilkerson, she wrote about that. So the bottom line is we have a racial caste system, and racism, and all the critical race theory says is that racism is an ideology that has been embedded in American institutions. It's that simple. It's not complicated. It has ramifications for that single mother who's struggling. It has ramifications. In other words, this fight has ramifications, not the CRT itself, because this argument of dealing with the CRT is really, it reeks of untruths. You see, the enemy of the truth is not a lie, it's a half-truth. So it reeks of half-truths and different perspectives, and people are arguing over the CRT when the argument that Rufo and the Republicans and the intolerant whites, the alt-right, what they're doing is that they're confusing people. I can tell by listening to a lot that they're confusing people. They do not want. They saw the census. That's what Ricky Clark was saying. They saw the census, and that census. When they looked at that census, and they saw that their part of the pie by population was diminishing, then you know what? They said, "Oh my goodness, we have to do something." They saw that the Latinx community was the population is rising and so forth, and all of that, and they saw that their totals were diminishing. They said we have to do something, but this is a power grab. This is an attempt to hold on to power. We've seen this in history before. After the Reconstruction lasted maybe 10 years, but for 4 decades after the Reconstruction, we had Jim Crow. And immediately it lasted, and then after that, there was a backlash. This is, and my brother said it well. This is a backlash. He said it well. This is a backlash that we're experiencing, and what they've done is they've taken this theory, this that was taught and that is taught at Harvard University or law school, and they've taken it, and what they've done, they put all of this stuff in it. They've said, hey, you know what? This is the now, and so we're talking about something that really, this is not the CRT. Well, they just don't want diversity. They don't want equity. They do not want an accurate, truthful teaching of history, because it shows just how damnable their behavior has been. They don't want that to be taught. As a matter of fact, what are the new terms that have come out of this? White guilted. What you saw with, and it's a shame, I met and been on the dais early on years ago when he was Attorney General with the governor, Abbott. And Governor Abbott, is a shame. Governor Abbott ought to know better because of what he has had to deal with physically. He ought to know better. He ought to have more empathy than he does. But House Bill 3979, he signed it. But now, watch this. Now you have, 19 states or more states, I think between 19 and 21 states, that have embraced this and said, hey, you know what? We don't want that taught. So they're taking Toni Morrison's Beloved out of the library. Some clown down in a legislator who's a clown down in Austin, I forget his name. He wants to take several hundred books out of the library because they say, he's saying that, hey, it does not, the way that it teaches, you know what they're going to want to do? They're going to want to take Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech at Riverside Church in 1967. They're going to want to take that out because of what it says. If you read the content of that, there are several of his speeches that they're going to ban those speeches. That has impact on the everyday person, because guess what? Our grandchildren are going to be raised in this environment, and with them gerrymandering the districts and so forth. That's 10 years out. That's 10 more years. You're talking about 12 years of slavery. That's 10 more years of this mess. And what is going on is that you have the Republicans doing what they're doing, people running around like a chicken with a head cut off, not knowing what the critical race theory is and believing the hype. What did Flavor Flav say? Don't believe the hype. Bottom line is, these folks don't want diversity. They don't want equity, nothing. They want to maintain power. Numbers diminishing. They saw what happened with George Floyd. They said, hell, this thing getting out of control. We got to grab the reins again and make sure that our posterity still is in control, still in the driver's seat, not rather than a passenger. That they need to be in the driver's seat. So that's what's going on. Greg Abbott and all those persons down there in Austin, the Lieutenant General, the Attorney General, all of them, they already know this. They're like Ted Cruz. They already know it's a lie. But what they do, they don't care. It's just like saying that the election that Donald Trump won the election. They're out there postulating that lie, knowing it's a lie. Same thing with the CRT. They know it's a lie, and so they say, we don't want our kids white guilty. So, you know what they're saying at the same time? We don't give a fat rat that could say stuff that Brother Minister Muhammad would say straight up. But they're saying, we don't really care about black and brown and people. We don't care about indigenous people. We don't care about that. They are disposable. Long as little Johnny and little Karen, as long as their feelings aren't hurt, you see, then everything is okay.
Thank you, Dr. Bell, for answering that question. that 3-layer question. It was you did a 3-layer question from Max to Ricky Clark and then Dr. Bell. Now I'm going to jump into some of the comments and I'm going to send it I'm gonna have to send this to comment to Minister Lee and then Jonathan. Since the truth and facts are not really used in the CRT political debate, how do we address the whitewashing of history in our schools? I'll let Jonathan, if you can kick it off and everybody can kind of pop out and answer this question.
Can you repeat the question?
I sure can. Since the truth and facts are not really used in the CRT political debate, how do we address the whitewashing of history in our schools?
Well, I think, got it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of like what Max alluded to earlier. I mean, it takes intentional leadership to go in there and truly make this change for the systems that our kids are in. So I would say that. Secondly, I mean, we were talking about the Republican Party and how, they see in critical race theory as the boogeyman and all that. But, on the other side of it, white liberal women benefit most from this white society. The Democratic Party, all of them have done the same thing, just in different ways, right? So the question then becomes, what are our leaders doing right now? What are our leaders in these systems, these institutions doing right now to ensure that people of color are represented, that people of color have their voices heard, and that people of color see themselves in these books, in these curriculum that are being produced by, like again, Max said, what Max did through TCU.
Okay, Minister Lee? Is Minister Lee on? I think he's there. He probably muted. Did he go on mute? Yes, he's on mute.
Unmute, Minister Lee. There you go. No, you muted it back. Unmute, Minister Lee.
I think they're both unmuting.
Oh, okay. Maybe Ricky, you can just, is he unmuted?
You can do it, Mr. Minister Lee. There you go.
Mr. Lee, go ahead. He's still on mute.
Oh, let me.
You got to unmute Minister Lee. Unmute Minister Lee. But while she's unmuting Minister Lee, for me, would be to teach our children ourselves. Teach them at home. Have some of those questions. Do like what they do over at Greater St. Stephen's. We need to have some freedom schools, right? I wish you would go talk to my grandson like that. He ain't but 7. Oh, he's 8 now. I'm sorry, he's 8. But go talk to my grandkids like that. I'm not bothered about what they doing up there. I think that if you don't teach your kids and you sitting in there hoping that they're gonna come back, I mean, come on. Dogs don't send their cats to teach them. So I believe, regardless of what they say, we teach our own children. And if you're not teaching your children, your grandchildren, you're doing them a great deception. I believe, let the kids ask them a question. When you tell my grandson, do you remember Alexander the Great? He gonna raise his hand. You talk about Alexander the Wicked? He wouldn't let you say that. And he ate. Minister Lee, can you speak yet? There you go.
Yes. Somebody kept muting me, brother. It's a conspiracy.
I don't have control. I want to hear from you.
Okay.
All right.
Well, listen, family. There are 2 dominant mindsets in America today. Okay, and each mindset is not by accident. Those 2 mindsets are the mindset of white supremacy. The other mindset is the mindset of black inferiority. Okay, this is what the opponents of critical race theory are afraid of. They're afraid of the truth that will make the mind of who have been rendered inferior, and it gives the reasons why we've been held back for so long, and it crushes that whole idea that something's wrong with us. Okay, nothing's wrong with us. We've been trying to make our way in a system that was not designed for us to actually be successful. And this is why that mother that just trying to go to our food. No, racism affects her on every level of society. Okay, so the first casualty in any war is truth, right? And this is what they're afraid. They're not afraid. Look, Caucasian people are not afraid of theories. They come up with theories all day, every day. They got theories about the dinosaurs, how the moon got out there. They're not afraid of that. What they're afraid of is the truth of history and how American history has been whitewashed and sanctified. But the truth of the matter is that it was established on the basis of white supremacy, and it's sustained by that. So if you come with anything else that destroys the foundation of white supremacy, then they are afraid. And to those people, as y'all mentioned earlier, you have the people who say, well, I made it. Right. We all can make it. All right. Well, I don't mean no offense when I say this, but most people who say that don't even know how to go back and help masses of people get out of the condition because they're not in control of the system. It may. And if you look at crabs in a barrel, people always talk about the crabs in the barrel, but they never talk about the crab master, okay, who's over the barrel, who pulls out and selects the individual that he deems that he can make most use of, but he leaves the masses in the barrel and those that he take out can't go back in there, save the rest. And so how do we get it? How to get it into the school system? I agree with Ricky Clark. Knowledge is portable, okay? Alta mater, that's your other mother, okay? It shouldn't be your first mother, it's your other mother. Education should be in the house. Our children should be sent into the school to challenge the teachers and challenge those textbooks. And then once you do that, see, cause the way I became enlightened was I had a friend who lived in New York who came back and he brought me tapes of the minister. Okay, they wasn't teaching Minister Farrakhan in school. They had to go to New York and get a tape. Okay. So it's not going to always happen inside those walls. We have to educate our children what they are, teach them how to change the society. Because if they don't know the history of why the environment is the way it is, then we're not equipping them with the tools to go out and change that environment. And ultimately, if they can't change that environment, the environment would change them. So you get what you've been getting. That's right. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, let me go get a couple. Let me go ask a couple of other questions for the sake of time.
What's another question?
What if we do not see the world in the lens of color as a minority, rather individuals themselves? And I was really thinking about that question. You know, I'm gonna read it again. What if we do not see the world in the lens of color as a minority, rather individuals themselves? And this presents to me, to layer that question, a lot of complexities that we're going to run into in looking at an African American agenda. Is you have families are so blended now, and when I say blended, I mean racially blended. And so it gets therein within itself, it creates certain complexities where you're going to have to look at it differently. I know I was watching one video where a Black man said, you know, well, my daughter, he is mixed, is biracial, but she looks more white. So are you going to tell her because she looks white that she's an oppressor? You know, because that's what they believe, that that's a miseducation of what critical race theory is right there. And so I'm just going
to Donna, my first question is, why do white people think that we bring that up? Why do they think that their children will embrace the oppressor as opposed to the abolitionists? Why are they so afraid of that? Why are they so afraid that if you told that story that your children, it goes back to teaching your kids at home. Why would you think that your child will be on the side of the oppressor as opposed to be on the side of the abolitionists? You talking to white children. Hey, son, I tell my story. Why would I think my biological son would be on the side of the oppressor as opposed to being on the side of the abolitionists? So there were two white people doing this. One was the oppressor, one was an abolitionist, right? They both had an interest. But why would you think that your child would side with the oppressor as opposed to abolitionists? Because we teach the history. Because if you taught them this and told them what's going on, they would have to side with that. What our kids are dealing with, what they call their cognitive dissonance. They don't want your children to realize that granddaddy really did do that. Oh, that's how we got this well? Oh, that's where that money come from? Because if you don't know what was, you can't know what is. And if you don't know what is, you ill prepared for that to come. So wise people, I don't care if you black, white, or brown, study history, her story, and my story, right? How did this happen? So I'm not afraid of that. My biggest concern is, why do white people think that their children will side with the oppressor as opposed to the abolitionists?
And does that address the question, I see people as individual versus color?
Oh, when you say I see people as individuals, you have to understand, they tell us we live in a colorblind society. We don't live in a colorblind society. I want you to see my color. I want you to know who I am. I want to know who you are. And when I hear people say that they mix, they got a right to say that, but there's only one race. It's the human race. I bet your diploma, I bet your birth certificate don't say mix. I bet your birth certificate don't say mix. So we can go with that all we want to, but there's only one race. So I ain't caught up in that. And I want you to see me different, because let me leave you with this. Difference don't mean deficit.
Okay, and I have another question. Why do we, and I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's question. Uh-huh.
Go ahead, Minister Lee.
I just want to say one thing on that, because I mean, I agree with the whole, there's only one human family, okay? But it would be intellectual cowardice to deny the differences within the humans.
Come on, man.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's differences in all types of species, there's differences in all types of rocks, flowers. Okay, so that we're not going to make a big deal about the differences. Okay, but we recognize that we have a common culture, a common history. And see, here's where the problem comes in. The educational system is not balanced, and that is not teaching a balanced history of what the brown man accomplished, what the black man accomplished, what the Japanese and the Chinese, what all these people, it's really a one-sided educational system that really paints the picture that Caucasian people have been and always will be world rulers, okay? But when you introduce a balanced history into the educational system, what happens is that Caucasian people won't look down on black people, know we contributed something to the onward advancement of civilization, right? And so if everybody knows that every group of people, despite their differences, contributed to that onward march of civilization, guess what? Even if we never love each other, we'll at least learn to respect one another, because respect has to proceed love. Respect has to proceed unity. And we can never have respect for one another if you keep teaching the unbalanced history that we've always been a slave, they've always been the master. And that's just not true.
Okay, I'm going to throw this other, this is actually from Courtney Powell. And I have one for Bobby Emmons. Let me do Courtney. I'm gonna throw that at
Max.
Let me see.
Oh, it's Max.
I'm here. Okay, Max. Oh, there's so many questions. Let me just get it, because they're doubling up on me. Okay, Max, what can the teachers teach children within K-12 regards to history without getting in trouble or discipline with the CRT? How can we get some of the books that have been placed on the rejection list back into the schools and libraries? So that's going to be a Max and a Pastor, Dr. Bell. I don't know where Dr. Bell.
I'll go first while he comes back. So what can you teach? You can teach anything you want. You need to teach the truth. Otherwise, you shouldn't be a teacher. You know, that's where I come down. You know, it's like your job is to teach the truth. And that means teaching a balanced perspective, one that's up to date, one that's inclusive, one that doesn't pull punches. I don't think schools have the capacity to police what's being said in every classroom, even if they wanted to. I don't think the governor is gonna, hop on your Zoom meeting and see what you're teaching. And I think even if they did, there's a whole community of educators and advocates and parents and students who will stand up for your ability to teach what needs to be taught. So I don't think teachers should live in fear. I think teachers need to teach, the history of enslavement. They need to teach the history of genocide. They need to teach the history of conquest. They also need to teach the history of liberation, the history of resistance, the history of creative organizing and coalition building. And those are even with SB 3 and HB 3979, teachers got to teach current events because there's no other way to do it. Students want to talk about things that are relevant to their lives. That's things in the current moment. It's history of people that look like them. It's stories that tell the truth about what happened in the past. So I think, my advice to teachers is you do you. You've been, if you're out here on this call and you're trying to learn about the real history of America and the world, if you've been in ethnic studies programs and you've been learning Black studies and Chicanics and Latinx studies, that's what you got to take it with you into the classroom. And we have to resist these dictates coming from the state at every level, in the classroom, at the district level. We as parents have to go in and demand that they stop putting racist lies in the textbooks and in their lesson plans. And like Ricky and others said, we have to make sure our students are in the classroom asking the right questions too. For me, it's, we can't, like Reverend Barber says, I lived in North Carolina for quite a while. So like Reverend Barber says, forward always, not one step back.
That's right.
Mm.
Pastor Bill, did you hear the question?
Ask it again, but I think I heard it. Ask it
Yeah.
again.
What can the teachers teach children within the K through 12 regards to history without getting into trouble or discipline with the CRT? How can we get some of the books that we have been placed on the rejection list back into the school libraries? I think you and Max pretty much touched on that earlier. But if you could just kind of do a couple of minutes.
Well, the Cliff's Note version of the brief is that realistically, the teachers can be they can be monitored. They're monitored by the students. If a student goes home, read the law. If a student goes home and a student says, "Hey, to mama, I was offended by what was taught," then that mother will call that principal. It's not the school doing. It's like the abortion all that passed. A citizen can file a suit. And so what's going on, you have these students. And if a student is taught at home, a white student is taught at home, hey, you need to be, that this is history. And if someone says something to you, so forth and so on, and that student goes to school and that teacher says just some innocuous something, it doesn't have to be something that's offensive, but that student said is offensive. We know this. This is real time, real stuff. That student tells that parent, then that teacher's held accountable. It's easy. I'm an educator. I teach in a classroom. I'm gonna share with you. Is it in a graduate classroom? It's easy for me to sit and tell a teacher. I have teachers in my church, and I want them to have their jobs. That's why our church teach Black history. We teach Black history every Sunday for the last almost 40 years. We teach Black history every Sunday. There's not a Sunday we miss. Ricky Clark knows that, and others know that. We teach that because that's our responsibility. We have to also understand that we can say, hey, bring this book back, but the TEA and all of that, they have committees, and those committees, they can get those books recommended to them and so forth. It's a process. We also know, the third thing we know is that history is always written by who? The conquerors, whoever won. That's who's writing the history. American history is convoluted anyway. And so the thing is that how much of it can we even buy into, as far as, Christopher Columbus, a murderer. What can we say about the presidents who owned slaves? That was an article. What does that article say? More than 1,700 congressmen once enslaved Black people. I mean, this is who owned the slaves in Congress? More than 1,700. Then it says this is who they were and how they shaped the nation. That's why this nation, and that's why racism permeates every part of the nation, the institutions, the systems, the whole 9 yards. And that's not something tomorrow world, that's right now.
Thank you. Thank you. We got two great perspectives on the classroom. We got two more questions and then we probably had to close out. Y'all gonna take this into 3 hours. Okay. Jonathan, well, Dr. Bill already answered some of this too. He answered some of
Perez. His name is Dr. Perez.
Yeah, Dr. Perez and Dr. Bell, I think they've all answered this question before, but I just want to be respectful for the audience and everybody that's here. Why do we as people keep begging white folk and the like to see, hear, and value us? Why, I don't necessarily think that's Dr. Perez. I don't think that's part of his plan.
Dr. Perez, put it on. Go ahead.
No, I don't. Yeah, now we're at a point in time right now where we need to start demanding change, right? We cannot continue to wait on, the system to change, or it's not the right time, or it's not. We got to get away from that. And it's like me. When are we changing? What are we doing? How are we doing it? And if you're not doing that, if you're a leader and you're not doing that, you need to get out of the way and let other leaders come in to create that change. But I ain't begging nobody, and I think. That goes back to that quote that I said from Adolfo Acuña, which is history can either oppress or liberate people. I feel liberated. I'm a brown Chicano and I'm proud, barrio scholar. I'm proud that I can navigate these different spaces and be who I am. I don't have to conform. I don't have to change. I don't have to beg. I don't have to ask because I now know how the system operates and I now know what I need to do to make sure that I dismantle that system.
Now, what define barrio scholar? Define barrio scholar.
It's from the bar.
Well, for me, I'm from the barrio. Diamond Hill was where I was born and raised, the capital of Fort Worth. But for me, it's one who can navigate the barrio, the taqueria, the pulga, to the classroom, to the boardroom. I can navigate these different systems and still be who I am. I'm an educated man, but I also have that street knowledge.
Okay, I like that. Okay, well, we got two more. I'm just going to, before I ask that last one, I'm going to do it. Okay, yeah, this is going to be a good one. But first, we're going to, I have to ask this question, and this is going to go towards Ricky. Ricky, a lot of you've taught in a number of places, and you've been on a number of platforms. Oftentimes you teach the zenith of education comes from the Grand Lodge of Luxor. And it was a place where the Greeks and Romans went to earn the highest degree of human learning. In the Grand Lodge of Luxor, there was mainly 4 education. You can correct me. The applied sciences, liberal arts, religion, and business. If that was the zenith of education and knowledge, and they didn't need critical race theory, and we're trying to get to that zenith today, why would we need critical race theory today?
Well, because you have to think about back then, I was talking about Luxor, the Grand Lodge of Watts. That's why we have in Vegas a hotel called the Luxor Hotel. But the Grand Lodge of Watts taught 4 subjects: religion, applied science, liberal arts, and business. And we know for a fact that they taught it. I happen to have a degree in mathematics. I'm not bragging, it's a testimony. But I was told that Pythagoras was the father of math and Euclid is the father of geometry, but they can't build a pyramid. And you stated in your question that they came to Luxor. That means they weren't there already. So they came to learn. Anybody who wanted to learn, you had to go to Timbuktu or to Luxor, which was the first HBCU. So they came there to learn the information and they brought it back to the people. We have to be mindful of the fact that the Greeks don't come on the scene in 30 BC. So there was no word, that needed no word for race back then. but they've always dealt with theory. Theory is a thought. So that means something incomplete. So we've been thinking since the beginning of time. So we know for a fact that if we talk about those 4 subjects, religion, apply, well, we know religion, all religion, you can go and study any subject, they all go back to Kemet. We can deal with math. We know for a fact that the concept of numbers came from Africa. We want to deal with, religion, applied science, liberal arts, books. So that means that's reading and writing. Well, the first style of writing was hieroglyphics. Who was writing and who was reading? So I don't have to question that part. And we know they've been doing business because we're doing it now. So it's not if it was the Zenith, it is the Zenith, and they still taking from it right now. Everything. So I think it's important that we teach people. It's only we begin your history in a state of freedom. So what I tend to do when I begin to teach people, I don't begin the history in 1619, right? Nobody begins their history in slavery. So I begin it in a state of freedom, and I believe that it's important that we start at Zenith at our highest. And there are some other places like Timbuktu, but I began to teach about Kemet because I know that if I remind Kemet, for those who may not know, is the original name of Egypt, which literally means land of the blacks. And the original name of Africa being Akibalan, which literally means Garden of Eden, Mother Earth. So I have to start with what's liberating as opposed to what's oppressive.
And I am going to thank you. I am going to ask this last question. And I'm going to have everybody answer and do their closing remarks at the same time, but I want to take the time out and thank everybody in the chat and thank everybody on social media, all the different shout outs. Thank you, Deborah Peoples. She's just always at the doctor's shop. She's always volunteering, doing things for us. I hope she puts in the chat because she is running for office. So hopefully she hear us and she puts that in the chat so everybody can be mindful that she's running for office. And then if anybody else is doing something, please add it to the chat so everybody can see. I see Go Perez, Santos Ramos out there. The Brown Brothers giving a shout out. Everybody agreeing with everybody, and I agree 100%. This is made up issue to get independent whites to vote Republican, and so Willow, she's always on all our platforms. Thank you, Willow, so much. And so I just want to everybody that's loving on us in the chat and on Facebook, and pretty much value this conversation. Thank you very much. And in the polls we got that. Do you think there is a need for critical race theory? And overwhelmingly, 93% said there is a need for critical race theory, and 93% did know about critical race theory prior to this conversation. But I'm going to create another poll. I think I'm going to create another poll that Dr. Perez wanted me to put out there.
If we don't run, we can't win. Running for Tarrant County Judge. There's some other people that's going to be running for some offices too. We got an empty seat over there for the school board. And we got Brother Wallace Bridges is running for that. And so I'm going to say publicly, I'm going to support him openly. And I hope that there's some other people on here who want to support him as well.
Okay,
Amen.
You say you too,
thank you
Dr.
to the great. We have one more question. We got one more question. I want you to do while they're doing their closing remarks, I'm going to type a question in the chat that Dr. Perez asked me to type to see if people learn more after this discussion. So I think that's in order. And I want to thank my panelists for taking time out. Please click for further reading. There's a lot of books in there. And Dr. Bell mentioned another book that I'm going to add to it. And I also want to add Dr. Max. I don't want to massacre his last name, so I call him Dr. Max. He has a book. I'm going to make sure I add that book in there.
What about this? I bought it from your store.
Oh, it's already in the link.
Oh, did you put down those books? What about from kindergarten to 12th grade?
Yeah, I'm going to add all of those back into the link. I'm going to add those into the link.
Please get that.
Yeah, so all those books are going to be in that link. And Ramona, thank you. Support the doc by getting a membership as well. And that is from our long-running member, Ramona White, who has her memoir in the store. She's been a member of the, I think, for the past 10 years, just kind of making sure the store stays alive, especially when there's just challenges for the bookstore. But everybody, thanks so much. Yes, I gotta get that. I gotta get that book. Type it in the chat. Yeah.
Black, brown, yellow, and left. Dope. And I got it from Los Angeles. Yeah, I love this.
Okay, the last question is, and you can do your closing remarks too. Is it likely that all this effort to fight CRT, anti-racism, and teaching real history will backfire eventually? The lies can't be maintained forever. Eventually, truth will prevail, I hope. I'm going to let you guys respond to that question. Let me know if you need me to repeat it, and do your closing remarks at that time.
I talk too much. I'm gonna go first and be quiet.
Huh?
I'm gonna talk and be quiet because I talk too much. But this information right here, there's one thing that said, it says once the mind is expanded, it'll never go back to the same. So just having a conversation about critical race ethnic theory, just talking about our culture, learning something new. Once you hear it, your mind will never go back the same. I believe that we're on not even a roller coaster. It won't be up and down. We're on a express to the top. I believe this stuff will keep picking up because you have to realize my grandson is 7 years old. The stuff he know, 8. The stuff he know at 8, I didn't know till I was like 35 or 40. And so I believe they made a mistake. The more they talk about it, the more we'll get more enlightened because folks didn't even know what CRT is. And now they go and asking questions. Folks that would never even ask that question. And so I'm not running from CRT. I'm running to CRT. And I don't have a problem with they putting all of it in the basket. Truth ain't got no holes in it. So I'm not bothered by it. And I close with this. If you don't know what was, you can't know what is, so you need to go study. So I'm encouraging us to study. I'm encouraging you to take this conversation. And that question that she asked, it will be forever open. We will be mindful and we will continue to go forward. So that's what I anticipate.
Okay, I'm just going to go in the order of my screen, and that is Dr. Perez. If you need me to repeat the question, or you could click on it, it's the last question, and just do your closing remarks. And I need to go ahead and shout out to Community Frontline, which partnered with us on this event. Ricky Clark forgot to mention that in his closing remarks. No, I'm just playing. But thanks a lot, Community Frontline, and they're going to keep tabs on the polls and as we have ongoing conversation. Dr. Perez.
Yeah, there was a quote that I saw last year that just really touched me. It says that racism is so American that when you protest it, people think you're protesting America. And it's really, one of the things that we have to continue to push for. As I mentioned earlier, there's no more asking, there's no more begging. No, it's time to demand. And we have to imagine a society where people from all walks of life, from different colors, can navigate these systems without having to be their authentic self. So that's all I have.
Okay, let me go. Minister Lee Muhammad, did you need me to? By the way, the poll question is out there if you rather you learn from this event. Minister Lee?
Reread it, Don.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I can reread the question as you do your closing.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead.
Remark. That's it. And Julie got the last question. Is it likely that all this effort to fight CRT, anti-racism, and teaching real history will backfire eventually? The lies can't be maintained forever. Eventually, the truth will prevail, I hope.
Yes, ma'am. I would say that the truth is already out there, and it's too late to put it back in. The heavens and the earth were established on truth. And I would simply say that, darkness is falsehood. Darkness is not real. Okay? If when you turn on the light and you ask yourself where did darkness go, didn't go anywhere. It never existed. Okay? So when light comes, dark vanishes. And that's what's happening right now. The people are becoming more enlightened, and darkness is vanishing. And if America is to survive, then America is going to have to put down her whiteness. accept the fact that this is a pluralistic society, right? Everybody is reaching out to know who they are, to know their place in the society, their history, their culture, and they're going to have to accept that. Otherwise, America can't advance because falsehood can never be sustained when truth is present. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Max, Professor, he's in Mexico right now. Did you need me to repeat the question, or are you okay with the question?
Oh, I got it. I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you again for inviting me to be part of this conversation tonight. I learned a lot. That's what I wrote on the poll. It's always great to be here with other folks doing this work and different angles and everything. Yeah, I'm in one of the oldest cities in the Americas, right? And coming up on its 700th anniversary, Tenochtitlan, now Mexico City. And yeah, they had numbers nearby here. The Maya had numbers, right? Hundreds of years even before that. So there's a whole lot to history that still we all need to keep educating ourselves about. For me, the whole question of will the truth prevail is a hard one. As a historian, I'm not, it's hard to be optimistic, right? As Dr. Bell said, things have always been bad. Things have always been, this society's existed in the way it has from day one. And yeah, it doesn't just get better. People have to organize. People have to go out and do the work. People have to teach themselves and teach others and build these spaces for liberation where you can do Black History every Sunday. That's incredible. That's really important work. And so, yeah, for me, there's no inevitability about history. It's about what do we as humans in our moment choose to do, with the choices available to us. And I do think, right, that means we have to fight. We have to find ways to keep moving forward, and resisting and creatively trying new things. And yeah, it's very hard to fire a teacher these days. To go back to that question, it took us years to get rid of Georgia Clark after she did some really heinous stuff, right? So I think we have to trust ourselves and believe in ourselves and our own self, capacity for self-determination, and really push ourselves to take advantage of the moment we're in. There is truth out there, as Ricky and Minister Lee said. The last couple of years since the murder of George Floyd, the conversation on race in America has changed, and that opens new possibilities. And I think it means that, on the one hand, this backlash is in full force, as everybody said. White folks are afraid of the demographic change, afraid of losing power. But it's easier than ever to get the truth. And I hope that we can work with our communities and with each other to make sure that there are spaces for folks to get it and talk about it and learn from it. And more than that, right, to take the next steps in organizing for the future. So, I'm optimistic in our capacity as human beings to liberate ourselves from this terrible system. White supremacy has made all of us unable to fully flourish. White folks too, right? White folks lose from white supremacy, and we need to undermine and dismantle it. And as my colleague, the great Indigenous scholar, Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz put it, maybe we have to stop talking about fixing or reforming these United States and start thinking about how do we dismantle them and build something new. So thank you again for including me, and let's get to work.
Thank you so much. And I will be adding the books. After the call, I'll add some more books to the list, but for all the books, we are giving a 20% discount on your subtotal. So once you check out, you should get a 20%. And I'll put the coupon code in the chat. Again, I want to thank everybody. We have that last comment.
Daniel. I haven't had my closing remarks.
No, that's why because I'm trying to clear up for everybody. You don't get it. Oh no, that's why I'm trying to do all this. I don't have to do a lot of administrative stuff, so we can leave people on your note. So I'm doing housekeeping stuff. And there's a strategy to my madness. So just some more housekeeping. Yes.
Yep.
Click the
Always.
link for books for further study, for the further study, and I will put a coupon in the chat. And Dr. Bell is going to close us out, and I won't say much coming back, but thank you for everybody that continue to support other Doc Bookshop. Please continue to support independent bookstores, and I will keep the coupon valid for the next 48 hours because I know I need to add some more books to that link, and I'll definitely get all those books added in there. And thank you, Dr. Max Albert is real deal. So, okay, Dr. Bell, I was giving you a chance so you could just really take it home for us.
No, I'm not. It's already been taken home. But let me say I'm grateful to you and Doc, the Doc Bookstore. I think that we need to make sure that we do all we can to support the Doc Bookstore. This would not have happened without the Doc Bookstore, and I'm saying it repeatedly for a reason. You and Danya, you and Donna, y'all have brought a treasure to this entire community, Fort Worth community, and we need to do something. That's one part. Dr. Max, I'm across the street at Bright from you, and it's refreshing to hear someone at TCU say what you said. You're on point. The bottom line is we just have to fight. The victory is in the struggle. Sometimes you can't see light at the end of the tunnel, and as Ricky Clark would say, like Jesse Jackson said, we saw light at the end of the tunnel. We thought it was light at the end of the tunnel, but it was a train coming our way. But the bottom line is that. In answer to that question, somehow there has to be enough oxygen for the truth to survive and to flourish. There has to be enough oxygen. And right now, when you look at the calculus of race and you see all that's going on, the way this country has historically done. Dr. Max knows about this because that's what he deals with, that this country, how this country has been historically. That there's, you can look at it and really the only way, that even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Vincent Hardin said that what we've done is freeze frame Dr. King on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. We just celebrated his birthday on Saturday, and then we have the holiday on Monday, but we're still listening to I Have a Dream. That's an insult to his legacy. Dr. Vincent Hardin said in his book, The Inconvenient Hero, that and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said a whole lot more than I have a dream. And so I think and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. apologized. As a matter of fact, he told his church, he said, hey, this is a nightmare. What I thought was a dream is a nightmare. He said, I'm afraid I brought people into a burning building. And that's Dr. King that we don't even hear about, you see, because his eyes were open and he saw what we're dealing with. He saw and he recognized how pervasive racism is in this country. And so the only way we're going to have, there's no doubt, Dr. Max, dismantling it is the only way. What other way is that? This is the nature of the beast. And this is, we're in the killing fields of North America. I'm speaking specifically for African Americans and for Latinos. And we're in the killing fields of North America when Fanta at 8 years old can be killed by policemen. And so we're in this kind of an environment. And so we just have to struggle. We don't give up. we continue to try and fight and pray that hey, our truth will one day have enough oxygen to thrive in this very toxic environment. It's that's the only way I know. So I just echo what has already been said.
Okay, I want to thank all.
Oh, we got this panel, man. It's a monopoly board. We got to break it up.
That's it.
I want to thank all our panelists. I want to thank everybody that provided a comment to this today. The poll says, based on the polls, is 100% said, the people that took the poll that they learned a great deal. I think that helped clear as we go into an election environment, a political environment, what type of questions people need to ask. So thank you, panelists, for all your time, all your support. I really appreciate it. And, stay tuned. We're working on our next thing coming up for the Doc Bookshop in terms of advocacy is Paul Coase. I don't know, he was on earlier, but they're going to deal with the exoneration of Marcus Garvey. So we're looking at getting Dr. Marcus Garvey Jr. on the platform, as well as many others that are going to deal with the exoneration of Marcus Garvey. And we talk a lot about Ethiopia in our circle. So we're going to deal with the Ethiopian genocide. And so please stay tuned, go and register for our events, and that'll let you know when we open that platform up. And follow us, click the green button at the top and follow us. That'll let you know every time we have something going on. So again, thank you, everybody. I am about to end.
All the teachers in history class with the front line in February. At the shop.
February is loaded.
So get ready.
Dr. Bell has his book signing at the bookstore. So
Right.
Oh,
it's totally loaded. And hopefully when Max comes back in town, we can get a book signing at the store too. So
when is Dr.
February
Bell's book
12th,
signing?
and I'll put that information. Right, there's
February
a lot going on coming up in February. So yes, everybody sign up for the distribution list just to stay informed. So again, thank you, everybody. And we're doing a reading review of 1619 too. So we got a lot.
Yeah, I can use some help. So man, Dahlia's gonna be doing 1619, Minister Lee. You know how we did cast. I can use some help. So if y'all ready, let me know.
That's going to take place over a course of certain days. I don't know if we're going to get there.
So let's go forward.
Okay.
Minister Lee,
Well, thank you, everybody, for your time, and have a great evening. And shop the Doc Bookshop.
All right, thanks.
New hotel.
How do you close this out?